anyway, there's two lakes here, and that's what it is. There used to be cabins up there, and Toccoa Dam broke. Then they drained this lake up here because it's a man-made dam, and it was an earthen dam. So they decided to go ahead and drain because it's a long drop off. Forest Hills is another interesting thing that's around here, and I'll tell you a little bit about them. You remember the Rambo schools from Bell Sound? That's where they're held. They're held right about 2 miles from here. So you're going real close. Also, that person was a retired person from Power and Light Company. And he has also shown an interest in some of the things that we were doing and we're planning to do. Sit down and talk to them. We also have talked about things which we'll get into later on about a bartering system, a possibility. Saying, hey, I can help you with your computers. You can give us free rooms, or you can give us free whatever. We'll work something out that way. So that's a possibility. Don't know whether he'll go with it, how much he'll go with it or not. But they do need help in some areas, and I'm hoping to do some help that way. And maybe we can work some things out in a combination. But anyway, I thought I'd show you that for later on today because that's a good place to eat. And tonight we'll try to eat there. The other thing is they've got a lot of cabins up there, and they're very expensive. But it shows you what one family moving into an area that's retired, took a gamble. He had so much he got from the company. He had so much invested. He turned around and he had an idea. He had a dream. And that dream is to have this much land and put some cabins up on it, and have be able to be closer to his family. Because he'd always been doing things independently, but he thought he could gain with retirement to be closer to his family and kids. So he started this thing up here from Florida. He moved from Florida up here. When he went to the bank to get a loan to do it, they laughed at him. Said, hey, there's nobody up there. Nobody in the county would even dream that you could have anything rented up here that would make any money. So they didn't give him the loan. There's several other things that happened to him just after he retired. They give you an example of somebody that follows where we are today. And that's that we seize a dream, and then the question is how do you get there, and what obstacles you'll overcome if you overcome them. Today, there's people all over the country, in fact all over the world, that comes into this place. And they have classes. It's where we hope to do in the future things, some of the things I'll tell you in the future. I'd hope to do some training maybe. I hope to set up some schools up there possibly, long range, for the retired people to be able to gain expertise and do projects together, things like that. Those are some long range things that I'd like to see. But anyway, it's a good idea. It's fairly close to here, and they give you that. Showed you the map of the area, and by the way, those people know Ludlow Porch. How many people have heard of Ludlow Porch? Okay. Now, if you'll remember, every once in a while, right at the last, anyway, the last time I was hearing him on radio, I haven't heard him lately on radio. Don't know if he's on radio anymore.
He's on Sunday.
Okay, every once in a while, you'll hear him call him. What he does, he takes a telephone line and he dials in to Atlanta, and he takes all the calls, and it sounds like he's at the station, but if you listen real closely, then you can tell that the frequency level through there is not full audio, so you know he's going through a phone line. And you can hear him talking, and what he's doing, he's sitting out on his porch watching this mountain, because he can see us from right here. He's sitting on the other mountain over there coming this direction. So I give you an idea that he's up here already. Tell you a little bit about Dawson County that you're in. Dawson County is a very growing county. One of the things else that I see is going to happen, and those people like to invest, because we're going to talk about some potential investments and things like that, is to watch some growth. This county is supposed to grow something like to 30,000, let's see, from 5,000 to 30,000 in 6 years, something like that. Pretty fast growth. And I've already started watching it. It's going pretty fast.
Where is it now?
We're already into the 3rd year. So we're probably 10 to 12,000, something like that, I'd say now.
What's the reason for the growth?
What's the reason for the growth?
Yeah.
It's very obvious. 400 got cut right through there. It's right into Dahlonega. This park has become, this wasn't here 5 years ago. They built this thing in less than 5 years. This has been declared, as we come up on the Olympics, this is one of the corridors here. The other thing is the airport. Atlanta has owned right down the street down here, or not down the street, but down from where you made that turn. They own Dawson Forest, that whole area. It's big enough for a huge airport. It used to be the Lockheed plant. The only problem with that down here, as I mentioned down in here, it's a nuclear site while you hear that, it would pop up in the news. So that's the downside of some of the area up here. Is that the downside was that there was a nuclear site there. And every once in a while, the guy goes out with the Geiger counter and still finds activity. The other thing is that at 53 and 400, if you get a chance to see it, that has all sprung up in the last couple of years. When we first moved up here, that was just a pasture. In fact, a little rolling hill, and they've leveled that off, and they put McDonald's in, and all the Ingalls and all that. They're holding right now for the development because of the fact that the sewer coming in. They don't have the sewer. They got the water lines in, they got light fiber in, things like that, but they don't have the sewer in. They're working on the sewer. They'll have a sewer in about 2 years. So all of a sudden, the growth is going to go bang in. But right now, people are moving and finding that. That's just to give you an idea. And it's it's written up as being one of the more favored places in the movement from Atlanta because it's close enough to Atlanta with Highway 400 getting done. And especially the growth, if you'll notice, north of 285 to Dunwoody, just north of Dunwoody, all that development, that whole area is developing. Where are those people going to live? Where are they going to commute from? Where's their commuting range? All of a sudden, this puts them right in the line for commuting range. And now the new 285 or 485, or whatever you want to call it, the new belt line is going to come out right between Cumming, right before you get to Cumming, right at that point. That moves the whole belt line out another 15 miles. So now you move that whole border line up, and we'll be just about like Roswell one day. It's kind of interesting to watch that. But that's just some information about the area. And then plans tonight that to get some food and all like that. We'll go down there down to Forest Hills and do that. It's moderate price. They're usually about $8 or something like that. Depends on what is it now? Do you remember something? Without the coupons.
It'll be somewhere between about $8 to $11, and it's best we understand it's a seafood buffet,
Tonight.
and they also have chicken.
And that's for tonight. Now, normally on Sundays, we go there on Sundays. Beautiful, great food. They usually have stacks of roast beef and then the chicken and plenty of vegetables and all you can eat. So, unfortunately, you get fat and tired.
We don't care.
Beyond caring now, right?
That's where it's at.
Also, want to do what now?
Carry on.
Want to at least introduce a couple of people that you already know, you already met, the way I was going to introduce, but Charlie Geray is going to present some things today, and Joe and Marilyn, I think maybe together or separate, I don't know which way, are going to produce, show some things also in this, in a presentation. We've made some charts out, they've made some charts out, I made some copies, we've got handouts for a whole set of things. Today, we want to cover real quick for me, and then we'll get them into it. Oh wait, feel free to interact, because I don't have everything figured out here, and I don't think I'll ever will. So one of the things we want to do is to try to do things together. There's 3 questions that I saw, though, that I want you to deal with. Where are we as an organization, and also as a retiree? Where do we want to go, and how do we get there? That's basically what we want to cover as best we can to get you an idea. On November the 1st, we tested the waters by having a meeting just in general to find out what the reactions were. We got a lot of feedback. We got a lot of comment about what people want to do. Some people left that line off, but most people feel that is. What can we do as a group to help that person, that individual? We got a lot of feedback from them. So we got a good idea. But it turns out that most of those that filled in, evidently, were looking for employment, for income.
Really wonder if you gave that questionnaire out today, because it's funny how in a month and a half, people's ideas have started to crystallize. You might see a whole different set of
Very likely. I wouldn't doubt that, because even as we go and as we talk, people look at the things like, your comment, what's he doing? What's he doing? What's he doing? And that's the type of thing that gets spread around. And good rumors produce usually good results, and bad rumors usually cause whatever was bad to go even worse faster. That's generally what happens. And now with the economy the way it is, and part of it's due to the fact of the scare situation, the other fact is that most of it's real. It's not only scare, it's real. There's enough evidence to prove that we're in a very interesting like this. Number one, how are we gonna survive, independently compared to how can we survive together? How can we reduce our cost, or how can we do things like that so that we can survive a situation that I think is gonna come up? And especially now that we're retired, we don't have an income coming in on a constant basis, that if the economy goes real bad, we don't have subscriber bills to be paid for on a constant basis. Chances are the people that will succeed are government, people working employed by the government, and utilities. And that's probably the key areas that will succeed during a time of a depression like this. The rest of the area will be in competition so much that they're just trying to fight for income. Now, with a retired income, you have some opportunities, I think, that other people don't, because you got some lump sums, you got some other income that's coming into you. Somewhat steady, but that's dependent on whether you took the lump sum and you're investing it on your own, or whether you left it in the company and you're getting a certain percentage of the company is guaranteed to come out to your retirement fund. There's several things right now that are different. For those people that left it in the retirement fund, to me, it looks like for them right now, it's probably looking right nice and rosy, while the people who took the lump sum, unless they can put something in there that'll start growing at a pretty good rate with a down economy and know how to plan for it. And some do, but you can imagine that I've already studied some things on my own, seeing about finances, and I realized that if most people were like I was in finances, and I probably still am, then I probably would not be able to make the rate that I was looking for. It's because we don't have enough knowledge to be able to analyze that and know how to put it in. So one of the things that we see is a possibility of getting a group together a little bit about the finances and understanding that. We also, on November the 1st, we were trying to evaluate some direction by meeting with people, tried to have a little bit of organization. In the meantime, since then, I've tried to meet with business owners with potential things. I've met with people to say, okay, if we could do something as a group, can we get a discount on something that you've got? And in many cases, I've gotten yes. In fact, we've got some companies that would say, hey, if you will market some of our stuff, you don't have to be a full-time marketeer or whatever, but if you were able to generate us some business, we'll give you a certain percentage of that business back. I said, okay. That gives us an opportunity. And he says, hey, those people having to find an opportunity, call it in. And most of us are out there walking through life, seeing things, and when we see an opportunity, it's a matter of just turning that opportunity. It's not really working for it. It's turning that opportunity into something good. So one of the things that I saw was that if we know what those categories are that we can do that with, we all know about it when we walk out, and anytime we see something like that, we can say, oh, there's the 20% income to whoever, or to me, if I was the one generating it, or whoever it was that was generating that, there's income to them because they saw an opportunity, fed it back to an organization, and was able to get the commission off of it, or a portion of the commission off of it. So those are the things that I see are potentials. I'm also looking at the opportunity in the markets. There's a lot of things that I have seen as far as investments, as far as foreclosures. One of the things about Dawson County, it's also goes down fast. It grows fast, but it dies fast too. One of the things is that the industry there is in a lot of building. So when the building got hurt, for example, at our church, about 30% of the church is unemployed. At least 3 or 4 people have already had houses foreclosed on. So they've already lost their homes. One person was from Nabisco, he lost his job in Nabisco, he was an executive, lost his thing, and now he took his retirement, sunk it into some land, into a house, and now he's working real hard to even keep the house, which he's probably going to lose. And that means he's lost his retirement, he lost his house, he's on the lake. So he's trying to sell that too. So there's a lot of those things happening, and I'm sitting there saying 2 things. Number one, I hate to see that happen. Number 2, how can not only help those people that are in that situation, but if you can't help them in that situation, what other alternatives do you have? An example would be going to the courthouse steps and bidding on a foreclosure, and you ended up with a tremendous piece of property at a fraction of the cost. The person lost his equity in it, and you ended up with a amount because you still afford it. But if we get out of position, you won't be able to afford those things. And I see as a group, again, the possibility of letting people know as a group, saying, hey, I know that's going on that courthouse step, that one's going on that courthouse step. I can't be in 2 places at once. Why don't you be over there? I'll be over here. We'll find out what they are. And John Toole and I, which I don't see John, I thought he would be here today. John Toole and I we're down in Cumming looking at some of that stuff one day when we had a meeting. It was like I was trying to meet with each individual.
Terry, are you thinking in the line of forming a limited partnership? Have you thought about that as far as, these are all really great
good at structures of organizations. The people that are, I think, are probably these guys right here, and maybe some of the others. I'm not real knowledgeable on organizations. My organization that I had before was, excuse me.
One thing, what she's bringing up, the way when we start talking about how this is laid out, the limited partnership for like real estate or something may well be one of the groups,
Group leaders.
in the business. There may be a group set up just to do real estate limited partnership type thing, which anybody can participate in.
Right. That's really what we see as a possibility on the group
This
leaders.
whole organization.
Well, not
Right.
necessarily,
Oh.
I just, because I'm the newest one and I'm kind of listening to what Terry's saying that you're interested in, I'm not zoning in quite. I'm like getting fragments here and there, and I was trying to key in on something that.
Well, when we get into the organizational structure, this is, by the way, I'm just trying to go with an overview. I'm not
Right.
trying to go detail, I'm going too detailed right now. So I probably need to speed on and get into Joe's and Charlie's area and let them get started in that. Let me just give you an overview though, but we do need to know where we are and where we're trying to get to. So I better stick on where we are, where we are right now. Basically, I was out there looking for opportunities in the market. I've been trying to make some analysis in the market where what things, and I mean by that, as I go around hitting people, talking to them, I listen to what they say. And if I heard something of what they said, then I know what their condition is and how bad it is or how good it is or what opportunities are there. So basically, I'm trying to look for that. I'm trying to gain knowledge on financial information. I went out and did something I don't know how many other people have done here. How many people have ever heard of Charles Gibbons? How many people ever subscribed to anything he's done? Anybody do that?
We're reading that book right now.
Okay, well, I took the plunge. I was one of the first, I guess, first one to here to take the plunge. As a result, I went to two of the things first and could see where he's making a bunch of money from me going there to listen to him because of that. You figure 200 people in there, he charges, by the way, he charges about $1,000 per individual that goes there, and then you end up with $100 a year. So it costs you about $1,000 and $100 a year. So the very first thing is you'll notice when he has all these people free seminar, you get all the free seminar, how many of the people in the free seminar, this is analysis, I was sitting there making an analysis of what was going on. I'm trying to learn from somebody else that knows what they're doing. And so one of the things I noticed is about 200 people out of that thing in Gulf, Alabama went up and signed up for it immediately. That's $200,000 on one night. Not bad. Then in Atlanta, I went to the one at Fairmont down here, and again, around 200 people signed up out of the group that was down at the Fairmont. That was another one night. That's $400,000 total. That's about 2 people on 2 nights. That's an awful lot. Now you multiply that by 400 people now, paying $100 a year, and that's a nice figure again. I said, boy, this guy's not bad. Not doing bad. Now when you figure out that he's got 400,000 people in his organization, if you listen to that, then that's 400,000 times 1,000. That's not bad either. Times 400,000 times $100 a year. Well, that's not bad either. So why can't you set up a few people that know what they're doing and be able to do something like that? Because each person's needs, they're hurting. And is the value that those people are doing worth the value? And that's really what it comes to. Is their value worth you doing it? And even if they're making a tremendous killing, if it saves me, if I hadn't done it, and I would have won by going to it, it doesn't seem reasonable, logical that I don't go ahead and participate in something that they aren't going to make money in. So it's a win situation for them, it's a win situation for me. So that's what I ended up evaluating. And I've already seen some things. To me, it's an education. I finally logically put it into this category. Education material. That's what I'm studying. I'm learning something. As a result, there's some things in there that I think we as a group, together in business as retirees, ought to take on, not have to subscribe to their thing or anything like that, but we ought to take excerpts from this of learning and figure out how these work together to where we can learn something from it, because he showed some things in there that most of that stuff I had done. There's very little that I hadn't done or didn't already know. But he finally got into areas that I wanted to know. And that last section may be where every bit of it, if he can save me 1% on my retirement. 1% on my retirement would have equaled more than the $1,000 that I put into it. And if he can save me 3 to 5% on the mistakes that I do, then to me it was worth it. And I said, no, I better go ahead and take this because that seems to be worth it. Okay, one of the other things is making decisions on personal goals. One of the things that we're trying to do do, or we're trying to do at the beginning, is try to evaluate our personal goals, whether it's gonna, how they fit in, and whether it's gonna do it. Also with the financial goals and so forth. And we also set up, we saw a need for support groups, and we also set up a voicemail system. Jim has used it a couple times because he's left a couple of messages on it, but I don't know that he knows that it's sitting on a PC. It gives him date and time. I can sit there and watch who's called when. And the other thing is that I get created mailboxes, and some of the things we'll do for the mailboxes is set up groups and let groups have mailboxes. Because, by the way, my suggestion to let all the employees have, retired employees to have their own mailboxes, I don't think went through. Anyway, so we create our own. It's technically possible, and that's one of the things. Another way, we can even create a service that wakes you up in the morning. If you want that type of thing, we can put that in there. It'll dial you up and say good morning, and whatever you want it to say.
Tell you what that is.
Tell you what it is. I'll do that. I'll do that for sure.
Friday the 13th, stay off the foggy roads.
Don't do that.
Somebody called Meadows this morning, told him that, I'm sure. Stay off the road. He would too. Yeah, that's right. Least little thing.
Where do we want to go? Try to move on with this a little bit. What are we trying to do, and what are some of the goals? What is the purpose of Together Business? Well, what I'm really trying to do is to meet the needs of others and the retirees that aren't met by some of the other organizations. And I think that we've got some unique things that nobody has really looked at. I see that Bell Atlantic has seen it now, and they're doing something about, and I think all of us had seen it as we retired. I know that Marilyn had seen that and was talked to immediately, identified with it. Those people that have been through it had identified with it, so I noticed that we were evidently on target from the identification of those people that retired. We want to be able to start sharing some knowledge and have support activities and some teamwork to be able to accomplish some things. One of the first goals, the most important to this retirement, is finding income and work. We know that that's a high priority on at least 3 or 4 of the retirees. I think we talked about that this morning, John.
Y'all run out of money on January 15th, so I need to think about it.
See, we already calculated. I think we're all calculating where we're running out. And it's very obvious, and some of it's accelerating based on what we
Based on
do.
my wife's Christmas shopping. She doesn't realize I've retired. That's what are you doing?
She hasn't realized that you've retired yet.
Doesn't
Everything's
understand.
status quo, right?
Life is the same.
Yeah. That's going to be dangerous when you wake up and find out that life isn't quite what it used to
I'll
be.
be in Mexico by then with my motorcycle. She'll never know the difference.
Put the lump sum of a
Lump sum of a motorcycle.
Fortunately, there's some people that are worried about it, some people that aren't. I'm glad that there's a number of the people that retired. But remember, it's usually the group before this one, because the group before this one wasn't in that targeted group, 45 to 55 years of age. And there's many beyond that came in, but the targeted group was really, they dropped that 10-year deal down, and it targeted a new group. So that group is the one that's like that. The other area is the fulfillment of work and what you want to accomplish, and whether, I know for most guys, I don't know about the ladies, I just know that guys, somebody asked, well, why does a guy feel he's got to accomplish something? Why can't you just forget everything and don't do anything? I don't know. Guys, tell me why. I just know that I feel that I've got to succeed or do something in a particular thing and accomplish it, be able to help others and be able to move in that direction. I'm not sure if there is a difference in chemical makeup of what people see and how they feel, if that's true. I don't know. Maybe it is in the individual. I don't know if it's an individual or a group or what. I just feel that there's a lot of things that I can do, and I'd like to be able to accomplish some of them. And then the other thing is to fulfill a dream. If you've got some ideas that you want to accomplish. One of the things I also want you to do with what we're trying to do here is I like to do research and development. I have some ideas that I would like to be able to feed into some group leaders ultimately, and I'd like to see them be able to take something that is unique, innovative, and so forth that I'm creating with a company that I already have. I have a little company called Creative Inventions. I'd like to be able to take those things that I haven't ever had time for, develop some of those things and feed them off into another group, and be able to use those, market them, hit some areas that I know are so large that I, as a person, cannot do them. I know as a group somebody's going to make some money off of them. I know as a group that AT&T made a lot off of the ones that I've already done in the past. So why not spread them around to some people that we know and see if we can't do some of the ones. if we think that they're worthwhile. So we'll pick a few of those things, and if they fit into the category, let's try some of those. Some of the goals included that we're trying to do is to help find jobs and create jobs. Create jobs with the job groups, which Charlie will talk about on the group leaders and so forth, but we see that as a possibility there. Creating jobs, not only finding jobs and trying to help job search. So that's something that you were talking about too. If you can get gainfully employed at a certain rate and can make enough to do it on a 5-day a week or 4-day or 3-day a week, would you want to continue doing it? And the answer, from what I heard, was yes. I'd like to do that if I had that type of job. The question is, you got to have that type of job. You got to create that job, or at least find it, or somehow find a job like that to be able to do it. You got to have a need to meet it too. That's the main thing. I see another situation we hope to do is the investment. I know that Harry's good at investment. John Toole's good at investments. And those are the guys that specialize, like to specialize in certain areas, and would like to take those specialties that people have and figure out what is their specialty. And since they like to do it anyway, and they'll probably do it anyway, then how, with a little extra help, or with a little extra thing, can they help a few other people at the same time and work in this group? And I think it'll work both directions. I think it'll help a group, and a group will help the person. So I think it'll actually blend more and more together. The other area is some social events. I think that I would like to see us have a good time as a retired group. I'd like to be able to meet at places. One day I'd like to be able to make enough income here that we could come up and say everybody can spend the night, we'll pay for it and everything like that. Everything's paid for. You know, just start getting everything paid for. Business, knock it off on it. Listen to Charles Gibbons, and all of a sudden you realize you've got to start a business, because that's how you're going to knock off most of your expenses. So you already know those things, so why not be able to figure out where we want to do something? If we want to go on a trip someplace and we got something to do down in Florida, then why don't we get it tax deducted, because we're going to go down there and visit somebody that's on one of our teams that's going to do something. And it'd be a business trip, a legitimate business trip. The only thing is you pick the timing. You can pick the timing to match your schedule, not you have to be at everybody else's schedule. In other words, what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to change the schedule maybe to fit the needs of the people. And I think that's one of the things I like to see too, because that's where you can save money and do what you want to do at the same time. At least it reduces it. We'd like to also support the retirees' businesses. We've got a number of people that have restaurants. We've got a number of people that have chicken farms. We've got people that have all types of businesses. And it'd be interesting to show you some of the ones that came in on the list. We've got a large variety. We've got, by the way, while I'm thinking about it, special thanks to Charlie. Charlie put out a thing on how to start your business. The last TIB meeting, lady called me when I was calling around trying to find the people that showed that they were interested in group leaders. Talked to a lady, and she has started a tax business. And she said, oh, when I first met her, she says, oh, yeah, I really appreciated that meeting on November 1st. She says, it was so helpful to me. She says, I took the stuff that Charlie had made up. She said, I went to go have it done, and I did everything that Charlie said to do. I had typed it up, and I researched it, and I called the state director. He said, I did all that legwork. And then I took it to somebody, the attorney, to go ahead and do whatever he had to do. He says, he looked at it and says, looks like you've done everything. You don't have to do anything. She says, you did a fantastic job. I'd like to hire you to do the stuff that we need to do. So all of a sudden, it was something that Charlie did that was of great benefit to this lady living in Cumming, by the way. And she does tax prep.
Get a raise.
She does tax preparation and so forth like that. So that's what her job is. She's got it incorporated, went right through and everything perfect.
You'll do your income tax for free. So.
So it was a good job on that, and I'm sure there's other people that we just don't know. That was just one that we called around on. We hope to do some providing of training in certain areas of interest. And I think a lot of that has to do with things to me that I'd like to see trained in, are things I don't know much about. I know some things on computers that probably a lot of people don't know. I don't mind swapping some information to learn other information. And I think as you start doing that, you build up a team, and you all of a sudden can combine things that you couldn't otherwise do. And you'll get some jobs and opportunities and everything else by doing that. We want to be able to work as teamworks to accomplish certain projects. Some of the things that I see as projects, I'd like to see situation, which I'm sure is going to come up. I don't know whether they'll ever do it or not, but I know that corporations such as BellSouth are going to have some people that were experts in certain fields. One day or another, they may or may not elect to use the individuals that are within our group. It would be nice It'd be nice if we worked and got everything prepared such that they could, and then they felt that was a reasonable method. But those are the types of things that I see that we might as a team accomplish, because somebody says that, hey, we can do some jobs that we can't otherwise do alone. An example of that, I got a call from somebody in the security area. It has to do with security. I don't know how that'll work or whatever. But I realized that just because you know how all the security works and so forth, there's always expert questions that you need to know. You need to know a little more extra facts about something. Does Elmos contain this, or does Cosmos contain that? Those are things that you don't know. I don't know those systems that well. However, if you look at the retired group, there's a lot of people that know the answer to that question. And it may be just a casual thing. There's lots of people that know it. The question is, where do you go to find it? Where do you go to answer that question? And if you find that, you'll find out maybe that's the answer to the security problem. It's the procedure that you use to answer the questions that really solves most of the security problems anyway. It's a procedure that you go. Another thing was to use innovative ways for retirees to survive the economic depression, which I think is going to come in the future. I think I talked about that. And to establish what we could, an organization that can have a substantial income for itself. I think we're going to have that to be able to pay for some of the things that we want to do. How do we get there? Well, like I said, I want to learn from everybody else's mistakes, not my own. And I'd love to have advice, and if you've got some critique, I don't mind taking it. I'd like to have it. I'd like to find out what you think is wrong, what I think would be. If you got some ideas of what would be right, I'd like to know those too, so we lean in the right direction. Need help in the small groups, team, and the sharing of knowledge and time. And we want to cover now the organizational chart, group leaders, the functions of the leaders, what we see there, the focus on the workshop, starting the venture. We've got a lot of handouts that Marilyn has done to make copies of. We want to be able to organize and assign action functions if you feel that this is some things that you feel that you can buy into, and say that this is a way of going. If we really think that this is the way to go. If not, we need to know up front those things and how to scale the thing to the right sizes and try to accomplish that. We'll also discuss about some marketing and the structure, personal goals, and some research and development type goals. And that's really where we're going to lead into, and then back to our main agenda, which is, over here, thanks. By the way, I need organization. I have one weakness there. I think I've always had that one, haven't I?
Why is it all men are that way? Us women really have to be.
I'm not sure. It's a chemical makeup.
Y'all a meaningful job. Just keep us straight. We feigned disorganization and the women said, well, I'll fix that. I'll marry him and then I'll change him, she said.
No, not anymore.
We draw you in that way, so we feigned disorganization.
One other thing that I showed here, and I don't know whether I should have shown it here or whether you wanted to, Marilyn, Joe. You wanted to get the organization chart and the other part?
Yeah, we go over it.
Okay, I'll leave those two up here for you to let you take care of that. I'll turn it over to Joe. Let him pick up there. Here's, you want me to do the get the handout?
Yeah.
Good idea. Y'all want to take a?
Yeah, take about 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes. Let
Yeah,
you
a little bit.
transition to ours.
Recycle the coffee.
Recycle the coffee, that's right.
Much twice as long way to McDonald's.
Very.
I like the way you asked permission, that was good, sir.
Oh, yeah.
You go to the bathroom, she says, well, yeah, Thursday, I
What I
can.
want to talk about here for a few minutes this morning is basically how the organization, how we see the organization working, and how it will be made up as far as what we're doing and what we plan to do with it. And the corporation, which is, of course, TIB, main asset right now is that database, because that's got all the information, just about everybody around that's been retired, and that's the resource that group leader will pretty much handle the financial side of it. Almost everything, including the associates, the people that work in that group, and the two dots here just simply says it'll be separate. Okay? The group leader interacts with the corporate, which basically is the database and in this case Terry, and marketing organization. And what we're looking at here primarily is, let's say there's, just for an example, say there's 10 group leaders or 10 sub-corporations, if you want to look at it that way. You can have a marketing group that's their bag, that's what they have to sell, is the services and so forth to these 10 groups. Marketing in turn will sell that to large customers, small customers, anybody that wants to buy the service. And the service is, you know, 1 day a week, 5 days a week a year, or, you know, for whatever type employment needs that corporation has. Some examples of this, I was called yesterday, and there's probably some of the people in Terry's database that retired that have experience in computer operations. Well, a lot of the companies have gone to what's called outsourcing. IBM has picked up a lot of this outsourcing. IBM wants computer operations folks just to work weekends. Their normal operations people want to work Monday through Friday. They're looking for people to work part-time computer operations just on weekends. Saturdays and Sundays is all they want. We have people to do that. Marketing would interact with IBM, set up the deal. This information then would be passed back to the group leader and back to corporate. The group leader then will get in touch with the customer and deal with the customer and place the associates with the customer for the length of time and number of people it's needed. That's the way we see TIV as a corporation being set up. Anybody got any questions?
Who would do the billing and that?
That's all going to be done by corporate. That way the group leader doesn't have to really be concerned about the administrative part of it. He doesn't have to be concerned with paying bills, collecting bills, handling, getting contracts, doing the legal side of, you know, what kind of contracts they are and so forth. Go ahead and stick this up and this will give you a little bit better idea. This is just the flow right here basically. And we only showed one because for 10 group leaders, you'd have this duplicated 10 times. That's what it amounts to, the same flow.
Joe,
Yes,
we're
sir.
looking at corporate to supply any support functions, billing and contracts and things of that nature, to free up the group leaders and the folks downstream to really get out there and do what it is they should be doing. So we're looking at support at a corporate level, administrative, legal, and what have you.
This
That's just a functional flow.
Yeah.
You know, as to what the functions are in the organization.
This will probably show a little bit better. Somebody put names in there, I haven't yet. I don't know who's going to be doing it. I think Charlie's got that one. But basically, as a corporate organization, these functions will be performed by corporate. There's an operations function, which the group leaders in turn will hand off information to the operations. Okay? Marketing function will handle customer service, pricing, sales, and so forth. Administration, this is back to the interfaces between the groups, legal and contracting, any kind of procedures as far as how we have to set it up here. Finance will handle billing and payroll and this sort of thing, which will free up from here down, basically, is a company. TIV then is sort of like a holding company that provides all the support services and so forth for these companies that form out here. Does that make sense, first of not nailed down to where it can't be changed. If there's a better idea, let's do it.
Just curious about one thing, this is a real specific question.
Go ahead.
Under your administration, for your legal,
Mhm.
legal sounds like money, but we had some legal people that came to our other meeting. Are they
That's
willing
right.
to participate in this in some sort of an arrangement?
That's what we want to
Okay.
do. Because, to be honest with you, one of the employers that we see coming out of this is this group.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the pay scale may not be real good at first, but, there is enough need to get this off the ground and running that it can provide, just in this area, employment for a lot of folks as it grows. And John, you're absolutely right. The legal side of it, don't want to go out and hire lawyers unless you absolutely have to, because they're real proud of their time.
But we had 3 or 4 in that November 1st meeting.
We had 3.
And I don't know what the fact that they were there, maybe they were looking for business, but.
They were, most of the ones on that list were asking for referrals. They've already got their practices started in most cases. I tried to get a hold of a couple of them, even for coming up to here for this meeting. My situation was that I didn't get a hold of them directly with them going through all, the fact that they already got a business going. It's sort of like trying to get in as a client for them.
Yeah.
So I didn't ever make real good contact. We have 3 people, all 3 of them indicated that they're looking for referrals, and they see this group as being able to give them referrals. One of the things that I saw was the fact that this group may need them not only as referrals, but they might be able to use them as referrals and somehow negotiate a bartering system where they provide free time back to the organization, because we're going to need that. We need some way of not putting out capital for something that we need these expertise in. It's knowledge that we need. We need the knowledge. In each area, we need the knowledge.
Yeah.
Terry, I want to work on Mel Druckman. He's a lawyer, and I'm one of his potential clients, so
Yeah,
I
Mel
want to
was
work
what I
on
was
him.
thinking.
Mel is
Get him
an
down.
attorney?
Get him
Yes,
to
Mel is.
Yeah.
Mel's one of the 3.
Yeah, Druckman's,
Okay,
he's
yeah, I
got the
know him.
practice now with some other lawyers. He's sharing their offices, and,
I had him down as one of the ones to contact.
we need
That's
him.
amazing.
Yeah. There's, what were
We
there,
might
about
have
three?
some, we might have some leverage. It sounds like 2 or 3 of us that know him might be able to put some leverage there.
Yeah.
Well, he's in a radio club, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work with him.
Well, you need to work on him too, so maybe there's any coming around.
He's more of a lawyer than a radio man.
Oh,
Yeah, that changes, you know.
I think Mel will probably be a good lawyer because, yeah, I won't go into anything else. One of the things I didn't want to cover here, I think you got it on that sheet, the corporate functions. This is basically what corporate will establish and do. And this layout here, the organization shows the breakdowns. Now, as we get further into it and start working, and there's going to be things come up that we're not aware of, there always are. Those things will be fit into these individuals, whoever they finally turn out to be, that's handling each one of these groups. And whichever one the problem fits with best will be the ones that get it, come up with a way to do it.
So this organization incorporate, have a business license?
Yes. As a matter of fact, Terry, where we stand on the corporation?
It's mostly through. There's a little bit of, I didn't feel anything perfectly. I wasn't as good as the person that followed to race. So I've got a little bit more to go, and it'll be finished. By the way, if you look at, I do have if you look in the paper, we've got the paper announcement already in the paper, and it's already been done. It's already been gone through its 3 or 4 week cycle. All that's been done.
We may not have to get quite as much legal assistance as I first thought, because yesterday I picked up a complete package from a company in Texas that's doing something similar to this. It's a contract labor organization for programmers. And I've got copies of the contracts, everything that they do. So obviously we have changed the names, the wording.
We can plagiarize a bit there.
Yeah, because it's not got copyright on it anywhere.
They call the referrals out to the Alamo and stuff like that.
Another thing, Joe, too, we've got, when I subscribe to Gibbons organization, they show you how to set up your small business. They show you how to do most everything associated with that in finances. one of the things that I think would be advantage, and I'm planning to do it, and you're welcome, I'm just putting this out to anybody that wants to do this with me, or together, or separate, doesn't really matter. If you want to go over some of those things, it's an awful lot of tapes, it's an awful lot of data. But if you want to go to a specific area, we sit down and just play those tapes, go through the study books, work out things, and do that as a teamwork. Because I think if we do that as a teamwork individually and as a business, we'll be able to take advantage of some of the things that are on there. And I'm willing to open that up and let you, anybody wants to sit down and spend some time and go over those things.
That might be something good for everybody that's in the core group to work on together, Terry, because then we'll all be basically.
It's fantastic if those people haven't. Now, I know that Harry probably knows all that stuff already, and probably John Toole knows all that stuff. But those are the things that I wish I had known before I wish I'd done that before we retired. I really do. I wish I'd subscribed to that, because he already showed me we could have taken tremendous advantage of what we didn't know while we were still employed with the company. And I really see that being advantageous back to those employees that are still working. But anyway, that's open.
Any other questions on what we've got here so far? Okay, I'll spend a minute or two talking about just the marketing side of it, which is one of the functions that I'm involved in now here, very involved in where I'm still working. And one of the primary things, established marketing plan is essential. It's one of the problems with the organization I'm with now, is there's no plan. And it's just helter-skelter type operation, which is no way to do it. We have to establish that, and we have to develop marketing methods and procedures for the organization. Keeping in mind that this organization, like I say, will probably be calling on, well, no probably to, but have to be calling on the group leaders over here for the different groups, and may in fact even enlist, an individual out of each group with the expertise in that area. And I use Charlie's as an example in the heating and air conditioning. Yeah, that's, by all means, that's something to market, and it's a good product. I personally don't know heating and air conditioning. So someone in the heating and air conditioning business that does know it will have to work with marketing and say, okay, here's what we got to sell, and here's the kind of pricing that we can, here's what the competition is, here's what charges is generally made to the public and so forth, to come up with the marketing plan. Okay? We'll also go through come up with how we deal with each of the individual groups and so forth, which that shouldn't be any big deal. The legal part of it, as far as establishing the and marketing services to the customer, that once again, the contracts that I have will help, but we're still going to need to cover as many of our bases as possible, not just from legal as far as the law goes, but legal as far as y'all's pension benefit from Bell South, as far as what can I legally do and still not cross over the border there. So all of that has to be looked at.
How much of an issue is that? Has anybody run into that yet with the non-compete? Because there's been so much hassling around in the paper about that Georgia does not have that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Realizing the company can do what they please, I just wonder what really is the situation on there right now.
Well, I wouldn't want to force the issue, but what I was told on it by an attorney was the fact that since Georgia, the laws in Georgia are such that a non-compete agreement is extremely difficult to enforce in the state of Georgia, because the courts, most of the rulings that the courts have come down and said that's restriction of your ability to make a living. And he said he was
Sanders submit a passel of?
Yeah, Sanders submitted, I think about 12 at once. I couldn't believe all the ones, and I think I've still got copies of them. I couldn't believe. He covered everything that you can imagine, upwards and backwards. All of them were approved, and there were some of the ones he put in there, he deliberately put in there that would be what I would consider very questionable types, but he pushed them through. They all got accepted. So basically, he looked at it and says, I can't see anything I can't do. They've accepted everything. So I'm not sure if that's, I don't know if that was a good, that probably was. Probably everybody should have sent in about 10 or 15 of them, all at the same time, everybody equally. And when they all got through there, and nobody would have known what to do, because I really don't know. That's what he did. I saw him, and I read each one of them, and he had things in there, working with salespeople, working with this, and working in the exact same areas and or close areas. But every one of them, now that doesn't mean that his would be valid for everybody else, because again, it depends on his job.
Well, this extra step makes it awful difficult for them to enforce too, because you've got an organization here, you're not individually competing.
Yeah.
And that makes it a whole lot harder for them to enforce that than it would if you went to work for Sprint and did the same thing you were doing if you left Bell South.
Another thing.
That's one. Good point, yeah, you gotta
Go ahead.
John
John Dayton and I played around with a couple of those, and I gave him some input. John submitted 3. He submitted one that would have been very, very definite competition with the company and in a job similar to what John was doing now. And the response back on that one, as I recall, word for word, was that one is very, very questionable. You have to come back to us with more details, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we recommend until you provide more details that you not go forward with that. There was another one that was working for a competitor, but in a different area than he now was. No problem at all. Okay. Third one, he was going to start up his own business, and it could infringe. Okay, it could be competing. Again, since he was starting out on his own and everything else, no problem, go ahead. So 2 out of 3 got by. One of them we very obviously rigged to be with a competitor and to be in the same type of work that we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years. And they questioned that one. They didn't say no, but they came back and said, you've got to give us a lot more detail, what specifically, real detail of what you're doing for them. So I kind of think it's pretty wide open.
Well, it looks like this is gonna be a learn as you go, because they really haven't given us any upfront guidelines, A, B, C, D, E. It's a case-by-case basis, so the
Yes.
only thing we can do is do what we want, submit it on a case-by-case basis, and kind of learn from there. There seems to be no precedent.
There's another way to look at it. Has anybody gone into the thing and gotten bounced?
Nobody has
hit
gotten to
anybody
know
with it?
that I'm aware of.
Okay, I just wondered if anybody actually done it.
Avery did the same thing. He submitted, I don't know, 1 or 2. And, quite frankly, I think, of course, Bill used to work with some of you guys. And you may question what he did too, as far as what his function was at that point in time.
Or reason for doing it.
Anyway.
But in other words, nobody has said, I don't care what you say, I'm gonna go anyway, because I don't know if they could even, I don't know what they
No.
can do with it.
But one of the things we want to do, though, knowing that, we want to come back out and stay so clear of that,
Yeah.
that we don't even have to worry about it. I mean,
Yeah, but-
hopefully the company will look at us and say, hey, that's a helper with us. We want that type of thing. And we really like that work group to be out there, and we really want them to succeed. And hopefully they'll get that situation where they did with Bell Atlantic, saying, hey, that group's so good that we like, we might even could use them somehow.
Well, and that's another good point for having this group, is the fact that as part of the retirement or rear type operation, there's some kind of a problem with them hiring you back directly after you retire. However, if you're working through an organization like this, you're not employed by them, you're employed by this organization, and the organization can place you and there's not a problem with it. That's one of the reasons that Bell Atlantic did some of the things they did with it, because they're bringing some of the people back that used to work in those jobs, temporary, to finish up projects and stuff like that, and they're doing it through that organization.
Well, they were doing it that way until they bought them out.
Yeah.
When they bought them out,
Well, I
then
don't know what they're doing.
this is what I found. They called me back in September. This is what I found out. Bell Atlantic bought that group out, and then the people that had, those were retirees from Bell Atlantic that started it. Well, then that meant that they were working back for the company again, and now they're on contract, those few people are on contract, specific contract basis, back to the company after they sold the company they had to the company.
As a
So
condition of the sale.
Right, I don't know if it's a condition of sale, but they wanted their expertise to keep on maintaining it and running because they did a good job of starting it up.
But Joe, it seems to me that might be a place where PIB could pick up some money because a lot of retirees are going with firms simply to have a shelter, if you will, to work back in Bell South. And those firms are getting money.
Absolutely.
PIB could get that money. It's sort of a competing type business.
Right.
And it would provide a place that people could go to get back to the company to work.
Absolutely. And I think, whether it's been stated before or not, that is definitely one of the objectives. Because there will be, whether it's recognized now or not, I think everybody that left probably realizes that the people in those jobs that they did fill, the people that are there, number one, do not have the experience yet, and there's going to be a period of time here very shortly where Bell South, Southern Bell South Central, all of them are going to realize, hey, if I can get the guy that had this before, and I can get him for 6 months, and I don't have to put him on the payroll, I can get him on temporary, I don't have to worry about benefits, I don't have to worry about any of this stuff, yeah, it's a good deal for us. And here's the source. Which guy had the job? Yeah, he's part of our company. Do you want that individual? Or here's a list of others that did the same job. Which one do you want? And that is definitely one of the goals of getting started.
And that's gonna take some marketing, because I'm not sure they realize that. I'm not really sure that whoever's running this thing now really understands what's happening.
They're starting to.
I thought they would.
They're starting to.
But it's gonna take a sale to do to convince them of it.
Are you talking about Bell South?
Bell South, I guess,
Yeah.
you know, they're not looking at that kind of detail. They're looking at this big broad brush bottom line, one number, we're gonna save a lot of money. All of a sudden, things falling on his back.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna see it take too long, because when people start complaining about what happened to dial tones,
They say, what's dial tone? That's
Yeah.
part of the problem.
there's gonna be all sorts of things.
Well, that's a definite avenue that I think needs to be looked at. It's not only Bell Atlantic, it's going on right here. My next door neighbor has asked me to come talk to him on 2 or 3 occasions now, and I told him I would after the first of the year. 7 or 8 years ago, he was in Albany as a marketing manager, and AT was into one of the early pushes. And there were lots of in-house, hey, if you don't go, we're gonna let you go. And they made an offer of retirement for those folks that qualified, but for those that were quite a few years removed from it, they offered him a year's pay, pack up and get out. He packed up and got out, that's a guy, 8 kids. And he moved back next door to me. And, you know, I talked a few times, and for a little while it was touch and go, but he's got all new cars sitting in the driveway, and the brand spanking new tandem trailer. He started 3 companies, all 3 of them are making money. Every dadgum one of us doing contract work for AT&T. Just, you know, there's.
Oh, that's what I say, there's no question the money's there.
I don't know, we were looking at some contracts early next year, and that's why he wanted to talk to me. And I don't know where that's gonna go, because I just put everything off to the first, I saw all that old leaves out there, right? November, December, put it in the water heater and do other things. But I think, the last I heard, he renewed one of the contracts, and he said that the view that is so pleasing from an AT&T standpoint in turn to him is they need certain functions to perform, whether it be equipment installation, wire work, or administration, or whatever. They need certain things done, yet they don't